Meet me. Welcome back, boys, to another squirrely guide video. Today we're going to talk about Substat Conversion. Fairly new system. A lot of you guys have been asking me questions about this, so let's just do a guide about it. As always, my guide videos are broken down into topics so you can switch to what you're interested in. I think most of you will be interested in topic 5, but topic number 1 will be what is Substat Conversion? Number 2 will be how to get modification materials. Topic number 3 will be the difference between lesser and greater gems. Topic number 4, how to substat convert your gear. And topic number 5 will be what you should be changing substats on. And topic number 6 will be final tips and closing statements. Let's get started. All right, so topic number 1 is what even is substat conversion? And it's really quite simple. Substat conversion is something that people have been asking for years because there's always that one substat on your piece of gear. I think arena gear is the best example where you're like, why is it even there, right? So for arena gear, it's always effect resist. They always love to put effect resist on PvP gear, and it always rolls into it. Wouldn't you love that to be something else? Well, now you can. On plus 15 gear, you can select any one substat and choose what you want to change it to. Now, there are some limitations. We'll discuss those later. But as of right now, that's the basic principle of substat conversion. Now, one of the limitations is once you pick something to change, you can never change any of the other 3 again. So pick wisely. So for example, if I picked effect resist, I can never change health, crit chance, or crit damage to anything else. I could keep changing whatever I made on the effect resist to something else, but I can't change the top 3. So basically the key thing to remember is once you change a stat, that's the only stat you can use modification materials on for the rest of that piece of gear's existence. Let's move on to the next topic. All right, so topic number 2 is going to be a quick one. It's how do you get these modification materials? And it's very simple. To get modification materials, you have to do expeditions. Level 2 expeditions will only drop lesser modification materials. You might have seen that everyone's running level 3s now. It's because level 3 expeditions are the only way to get greater modification gems, which are way, way better. But as of right now, Smilegate has said they're going to add other ways to get these in the game in the future. But as of right now, the only way to get them is to do level 2 or 3 expeditions. Now, if you finish this, I don't recommend overcapping yourself to get more. But if you really want to, you can. But I advise against. I think it's a waste of energy. But just farm it, and hopefully you'll get the modification materials you need. Let's move on. All right, so topic number 3 is what's the difference between lesser and greater modification materials? And it's really quite simple. It's self-explanatory. Basically, the lesser ones give less stats than the greater ones. So we'll pretend we're changing this effect resistance, right? So if we use a lesser gem, it's telling us that the roll range for this thing, which rolled into it once, is, or twice if you count the base roll, is 8 to 11. Now, effectiveness and effect resist have the same roll range. You'll notice that if I change it to a greater gem, it's 10 to 14%. So basically, the greater gems just give you better stats. So obviously, it's always in your best interest to use a greater one. But if it's like throwaway gear and you just want to make it work, you can use a lesser one temporarily. And also, remember, you can use it on the same stub multiple times, so you can change this to effect resist, and then you could change it later with a greater gem if you want to get a little bang for your buck right away, especially if you're missing out on greater gems. But basically, not too much to say about that topic. On your best gear, you're always going to want to use the greater gems, obviously, because you'll get better stats overall. So I think that's it for that topic. Let's move on. Topic number 4, how to actually substat change your gear. So let's pick something like this. I don't really care about this set of boots, so we're going to notice here that it has health, attack, effect resistance, crit hit chance. Alexa's on my Wyvern team, and effect resist is pretty useless. I don't need it. So all you have to do is, right away, you'll see all the possible gems that you have. One thing to note is you can't double up on stats. You'll see I already have attack percent, and I have an attack percent gem. if I pick something, you'll notice that goes away. So it'll subtract all the gems where you already have that sub and say you can't change to it. But let's say I want to change effect resist to, let's say, crit damage. It'll show me the range. So depending on my luck, I'll get 3 to 4%. And again, I can use this multiple times if I want to get that max roll. Obviously, it'll cost you gold, but that's all there is to it. After you get that, it'll warn you that you can't change any of the other substats except the one you already changed. I'll say yes. I don't like effect resist. And boom, I have 3% crit damage. Now notice you can change it again. So for the one you changed, you'll get this refresh symbol letting you know that that one was changed, and it will only ever let you change that stat again, like I mentioned previously. But that stat you can change multiple times. So that's how you substat change your gear. Very self-explanatory. Let's move on to the next topic. So topic number 5 is what to change substats on. So this is the one that's going to answer most of your questions, because people are going to be asking, well, how do I know what gear I should use this system on? And in my testing, there's really 2 categories. Number 1, the gear has to have a useless sub on it. Like you could say that effect resist is pretty useless on speed set attack boots. And number 2 is gear where it didn't roll into the stat more than once. And I'll get more into that when we cover that section. So number 1 is gear that has a useless stat on it. So if you're going to put someone on speed set attack boots, you can objectively say that you're almost never going to need effect resist. So this is an easy swap. I don't have any gems, but it's an easy swap to literally anything else. Health percent, defense percent, depending on the hero, effectiveness. All of these will give you more value than effect resist. So anytime you have gear like this, like if you have a Soul Weaver piece of gear, you don't only care about crit damage, so get rid of that. If you had like health defense and effect resist, and then like some offensive stat, get rid of the offensive stat, and even change it to a flat if you want. But that's the first category, gear that has a useless stat on it. Now the second one is gear that has a roll that it never rolled into other than the base roll. And the reason for that is because you get penalized heavily. And if the stat is even a little bit useful, like even on offensive gear, you could argue that, like, pretend this was health. That health is useful because if you're building an offensive character, you still want them to have some bulk, right? But they'll never have enough effect resist to actually resist any serious debuffer. But a little bit of health is always going to have more value. But what's the problem when it rolled into it multiple times? They penalize you heavily on the rolls. So you're going to notice, like, I can't do it for this one, but let's say, crit, like, do I have any attack things? Like here, this one, I don't think it rolled into health at all. So if I change it to effect resist, effectiveness, you'll notice I get the full roll range. So it could actually go up, right? I could potentially get 8%. So on a base roll, it's basically a one-to-one swap. You can just change the base roll to whatever you want. But subsequent rolls, you get penalized because theoretically, like speed, it rolled into it once because it's 7 speed. So in a normal range, this should be 8 to 16, right? Because you could get an 8% roll. But watch what it actually is. It's 7 to 11. So you get penalized for stuff that rolled into it multiple times. So ideally, you don't want to get penalized because it's making your gear worse. Now again, from the previous one, if it's a completely useless sub, you still don't care, but it's something that has any value, like speed obviously has value. I don't want to change 7 speed even to a better sub if the roll ranges are going to be this bad. Now, the best way to show that is to kind of show crit chance gear. So let me see if I have anything that had like, I don't know, like 20% crit on it. I should have something like that. Crit. Here we go, 15% crit chance, or maybe even something better, 20% crit chance. Now, I have a crit chance gem. I can change this 20% to crit chance again to try and get a higher roll. But you could see that I rolled into it 3 times based on these subs, right? So let's see what happens if I actually try to do that. If I use a greater gem, it's saying that my 20% crit chance will go into a maximum of 14 and possibly even 11. Are you seeing why it's not good value to change a sub that actually rolled more than once into something else? You just lose so many stats. Now, again, it doesn't matter if the sub is useless, but if it's anything useful at all, like health and defense, you might not think it's important, but if you're going to build bulky PvPers later, it is important. So you don't want to turn 20% health into like 11% attack. In my opinion, that's not worth it. I care more about the total stats, unless it's a piece of gear that you're only going to put on like an initiating DPS, something like that. And the other thing about that is because the rolls it gives you on future things are bad. Let's say you penta rolled into a stat and you're like, I'm going to turn this into a 20 speed ring. You can't do that because it penalizes you so heavily on the subsequent rolls. So I hope that answers your questions on what you should roll. It's basically stuff that has a useless sub or something that you want to swap that only it never rolled into it during upgrading, because then you get a fair one-to-one swap. For every extra roll that you put into it, the stat return on investment is much worse. So I think we covered that. Let's move on. Topic number 6, final tips and closing statements. I mean, it's a simple system, so there's not too many tips, but my advice is this. Focus on the gear that has objectively completely useless stats on it and just change those. And if you don't have greater gems, as far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, in my testing, you don't lose any stats for using a lesser first, and then when you get a greater later, changing it to a greater again. So if you don't have the greater gems and you really want to get that bang for your buck right away, just use a lesser, but eventually you're going to want to use a greater to get those extra stats. Again, to reiterate from the last topic, don't re-roll stuff that has any valuable stat that actually rolled into it, because you're going to lose value on that piece of gear. I would say don't overcap your expeditions, but if you are really desperate for modification gems, I guess you could. But the problem with that is the way the gems work, they are specific to a set and a substat. So you'll like I've done a lot of expeditions. I'm like halfway done, and these are all the gems I have. So if you're hunting for a specific one, it's very likely you won't get it in any reasonable amount of time. You'll have to burn too much energy. So don't go hunting for specific gems. Just AFK farm. Eventually you'll get what you need. But I mean, most people are going to be looking for speed set stuff. And I have one speed set modification gem. So it's going to take a while because you're going to get a bunch of junk gems you would never even want. It is what it is. Don't worry too much about it. It's just a way to slowly improve some gear that has like one random roll on it that's completely useless. So anyways, I think we'll wrap it up there. I think that pretty much covers substat conversion. One thing to warn you about that I don't know if it's true is that some people are claiming that you get more value if you modify the gear at 85 before you reforge it. Obviously, you can't do that if you already reforged your gear. I don't know if that's true, so if anyone can confirm or deny it, leave it in the comment section below. But my guess is that's false. And if it's not false, I think SG will probably patch it in the future, because that'd be idiotic if that was true. But I have read some things, people claiming to make sure you use modification before you reforge. So anyways, that's the guide. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more guide videos in the future. I hope this helped some of you newbies out there understand how the system works. And best of luck to you guys in getting that godly gear. Till next time, and keep on grinding.